power originates from the people. This truth, simple yet profound, forms the bedrock of every society across history. No government, no matter how mighty or enduring, can exist without some measure of public acceptance. That acceptance may be freely given, as in the jubilant exercise of democratic rights, or fearfully submitted, as in the shadowed acquiescence to autocratic rule. Yet, at every stage, it is the people, through their voices, their choices, and sometimes their silence, who ultimately determine the shape and fate of their governance. Democracy and autocracy represent two ends of a spectrum in how societies organize power. Each arises from the choices, conditions, and aspirations of the people it governs. Each carries distinct promises and perils, and each is sustained not merely by constitutions or force, but by the ongoing consent, active or passive, of the governed. In a democracy, power is a trust, openly given by the people to those they choose to lead. Elections serve as the heartbeat of this system, a recurring affirmation that authority flows upward from the citizenry, not downward from a throne or a single party. Laws, rather than the whims of individuals, provide the framework within which leaders operate. Institutions, courts, legislatures, independent media, act as guardians, ensuring that no one person or group can monopolize power unchecked. Democracy is, at its best, a living conversation. It invites participation, debate, and dissent. It recognizes that no single voice holds all wisdom, and that progress emerges from the clash and reconciliation of differing views. In such a system, the right to question and, if necessary, replace those in power is not a privilege, but a fundamental guarantee. The ballot box, the protest march, the letter to a representative, these are the tools by which people shape their collective destiny. But democracy is not easy. It demands patience, for progress often comes in fits and starts. It requires engagement, for apathy is its silent enemy. It insists on respect for dissent, for the health of a democracy is measured not by the unanimity of its people, but by their freedom to disagree. In times of crisis or division, these demands can feel burdensome. Fear, anger, and uncertainty may tempt citizens to trade liberty for the promise of swift solutions. This is where autocracy often finds its foothold. When societies are beset by instability, chaos, or external threats, the allure of a strong, decisive leader can be powerful. Autocratic systems concentrate authority in the hands of a single ruler or a select elite. Decisions can be made quickly, unencumbered by debate or opposition. Order, at least on the surface, is restored. For some, this trade-off feels justified. The promise of security, efficiency, and unity can outweigh the abstract ideals of freedom and participation, especially when those ideals seem distant or dysfunctional. Autocracy thrives on the perception that only strength can deliver stability, and that only unity can protect against danger. Yet, the costs of autocracy are profound. When power is unchecked, it tends to serve itself. Freedoms erode, sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once. The press is silenced, dissent is punished, and the space for independent thought narrows. Decisions, however swift, may lack wisdom or justice, for they are made without the corrective of open debate. Over time, the very stability that autocracy promises can become brittle. For a society deprived of participation and trust is one that cannot adapt or endure. History offers countless examples of societies oscillating between these two poles. Sometimes, democracies falter, becoming paralyzed by division or corrupted by complacency. In such moments, autocrats may rise, welcomed or tolerated by a people desperate for change. At other times, autocracies collapse under the weight of their own excesses, and the people reclaim their voice, often at great risk and sacrifice. What unites these stories is the enduring truth that power, in the end, lies with the people. This is not always obvious, for the machinery of government can seem distant or immutable. But even the most entrenched regimes depend, at some level, on the acquiescence of those they govern. When that acquiescence is withdrawn, when people refuse to accept injustice, when they organize, speak out, and demand accountability, change becomes possible. This power is not confined to the drama of revolutions or elections. It is exercised, quietly but persistently, in the everyday choices of citizens. It is found in the commitment to justice, the defense of liberty, and the insistence on accountability. It is sustained by the willingness to participate, to stay informed, to question and to care. The choice between democracy and autocracy, then, is not a one-time decision, but an ongoing process. It is shaped by the actions and inactions of millions, by what people are willing to accept, what they are prepared to resist, and what they are ready to fight for. Each generation inherits not only the institutions of its predecessors, but also the responsibility to renew or reform them. In times of peace and prosperity, it can be easy to take democracy for granted. The rituals of voting, the noise of political debate, the slow grind of legislative compromise, these can seem tedious, even pointless. But it is precisely in these moments that the foundations of freedom are either strengthened or allowed to decay. For when citizens disengage, when they become cynical or indifferent, the door opens for those who would seize power for themselves. Conversely, in times of turmoil, the temptation to embrace autocracy can be strong. The promise of order, the appeal of a single voice cutting through the chaos, these can be seductive. But history teaches that the price of such bargains is high. Freedoms lost are not easily regained, and societies that silence dissent lose not only their liberty, but also their capacity to solve the challenges they face. The health of any political system depends on the vigilance and virtue of its people. Democracy, in particular, demands more than passive consent. It requires citizens who are informed, who care about the common good, who are willing to engage with those who disagree. It thrives when people see themselves not just as subjects, but as stewards of their own destiny. This stewardship extends beyond the act of voting. It encompasses the defense of minority rights, the support of independent institutions, and the cultivation of a civic culture that values truth, empathy, and reason. It means holding leaders accountable, not only through formal mechanisms, but also by insisting on transparency, honesty, and respect for the rule of law. Autocracy, by contrast, often seeks to diminish this sense of responsibility. It encourages passivity, discourages dissent, and fosters a culture of dependency. It may deliver short-term gains, but at the cost of long-term vitality. Societies that surrender their voice may find themselves secure for a time, but they risk becoming stagnant, brittle, and ultimately vulnerable. The choice between democracy and autocracy is never final. It is a living question, posed anew with each generation, each crisis, each moment of complacency or courage. The systems that prevail are those that reflect the character, the aspirations, and the resolve of their people. To safeguard freedom, citizens must recognize their own power. They must understand that governments, no matter how formidable, derive their legitimacy from the consent of the governed. They must be willing to speak out, to organize, to defend the principles that underpin a just society. They must resist the allure of easy answers and quick fixes, and instead commit to the hard, ongoing work of self-government. This is not to say that democracy is perfect, or that autocracy is without appeal. Every system has its strengths and weaknesses, its moments of triumph and failure, but the fundamental question remains: who holds the power and how is it exercised? Is it wielded in the open, subject to challenge and change, or is it hoarded in secret, immune to the will of the people? The answer to this question shapes not only the lives of individuals, but the destiny of nations. It determines whether societies are places of freedom or fear, of innovation or stagnation, of hope or despair. In the end, the fate of democracy or autocracy is not decided by distant leaders or abstract forces. It is determined by the daily choices of ordinary people, by their willingness to care, to act, and to believe that their voice matters. Power lies with the people. This is both a promise and a challenge. It is a reminder that freedom is never given, but must be claimed and defended anew by each generation. It is an invitation to participate, to engage, and to shape the world not only as it is, but as it could be. Whether a nation leans toward democracy or autocracy depend ultimately on what its people are willing to accept, resist, or fight for. The systems that endure are those that reflect the values, the courage, and the resolve of their citizens. In this ongoing story, the people are not merely spectators, but the true authors of their own fate.